There we go.
All right, man. We live and direct. Awesome, man. I got a special guest for you guys today. It's Aaron, man, with the No Bullshit podcast. We're talking trucking. Super excited. Very privileged that he's going to come drop some gems on us today. So we're going to get right into it, guys. Here we go. If you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you got going on real quick, man, and we'll jump into it. So excited.
Yes, sir, man. Thanks for having me. So I'm Joe Gipp. I go by the Heavy Haul Giant. Been in the industry for quite a few years. 22, pushing 23 years. I do a little bit of everything, man. From power only, flatbed, step deck, RGN. I run beams, and I like oversized projects, so I'm always open to those. Run a fleet of 10 trucks right now, and yeah, happy to be
Awesome.
here.
Awesome. Thank you. So if you guys didn't catch that, he said 20 plus years in the game. And just so we can get a quick little synopsis, I'm gonna share my screen real quick so we can see one of his trucks, just to kind of see what we're talking about here. So this is an example, okay, of what he's got going on. And so you can see, man, how many is that? That's 11 total from front to back, right? So
Yeah, 11
you
axles.
got the truck with the drop axle or the 3-axle, 4-axle truck, however you want to call it. And then you got the Jeep back here, right? And then you got the trailer itself. And then you got the tag axle, right? Is that what you call it, the backside?
Call a Stinger.
A Stinger.
Yeah, Stinger.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So as you can see, he ain't playing around with it, man. You in there doing some big things, man. That's awesome. And you also said you got multiple trucks, which I didn't know till we got to talking here a little bit ago. But you're doing big things, man. And like the project you just did, we're going to talk about. But let's get into you, man. Let's get into who you are a little bit real quick and kind of what made the light bulb go off and say how I'm going to pick trucking as a career, because it's not a career that everybody picks, and they definitely don't take it to the mountains and peaks that you've taken it to. So can you share a little bit about your background and your journey and what led to, kind of how you got to where you are now, briefly?
Yeah, so growing up in trucking, my dad had trucks. Actually, he did it before I was even born, right? And I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest of 5 in total. One brother, 3 sisters, and then myself. So growing up in the trucking industry, I kind of think it was, I guess, destined for me to do it. So took a liking into it. I always did the mechanic work with my dad, and it made it easier for me. So once I got older, man, I started working on the river like straight out of high school. Got tired of that, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do trucking, man. I just felt like it was for me. It was in my bloodline. I had drove the trucks all my life, moving them around the yard. We would wash them, pull them up, bag them up, stuff like that. So yeah, it definitely made it easy for me to jump right into it. And hey, here I am.
So what inspires you to pursue this particular field though? Like, and not just, the specialized hauling, but what was the light bulb that was, so you just basically was like, man, this route that I'm going down, where, when you talking about on the river, the Louisiana out there, you talking about on the river, right? The big river. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming working barges, boats, something like that. So you was just like, this ain't gonna work out for me. It's not what I want for my life. And then you just that was trucking, or you had some other middle ground, something else.
Yeah, no, so straight off the river, I jumped right into trucking, man. I was one of those people who learned a lot from my dad, and I felt like I knew everything at some point, so I didn't really want to hear much of nothing. So I tried to choose my own path, man, with going on the river. And then after being out there, I was like, you know what, man, I'm tripping, man. I'm out here working my tail off, out here in this heat, and I was like, you know what, let me get back to what I know. So I called my dad up and said, Dad, I'm coming drive. In 2 weeks, I had my license and I was ready to roll. At that time, my dad was kind of winding down from trucking, and he had a company that he would just work part-time for at the time, just helping him out whenever they call him in need if they driver didn't show up. Well, what happened was that driver, my dad ended up driving for them, I want to say maybe like consistently for like 2 or 3 months, and then I came along with my license, and they gave me the job, man. So I got my license at 19. My 20th birthday had flipped over. They hired me, and the rest is history, man. I ran for them, and then eventually I transitioned to on my own.
Okay, so that was pulling what, like a drive-in or container or something, or in the ports, or what was that?
So I started in dump truck,
Okay, so you
and that's
started
the
in
industry.
dump truck.
Yeah, I grew up in dump trucks as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so you went from dump trucks, and then how did it? So at what point did it be like, I'm gonna go OTR? The dump truck thing slowed up. The money wasn't there. Or you got recruited, or how did it end up where I'm gonna go do some like OTR or drive in or some other type of trucking?
Yeah. So what happened was, like I was telling my dad when I did transition, I said, Dad, y'all were building everything, when we were growing up. Man, in New Orleans, everything was built by the time I came along. So we talk in 2000, 2001. I'm jumping in the game specifically at 2001. I get my license, and then 2002 roll around, and it's like everything's slowing down. The money is a little more scarce. Most of the larger companies have monopolized the industry. So I'm like, you know what? I need to do something different. I'm starting a family. So I decided to go over the road, and that's when I reached out to Snyder. Um, they gave me a hard time at first, and then afterwards, one of the recruiters actually called me back and said, "Hey, we seen you, started the process, but you didn't complete it." We went through some negotiations. They agreed to my terms. Of course, I had to agree to their terms, and we found a happy medium. And yeah, then I went with Snyder, and that's why I got my first over the road experience.
Okay, so how long did you do that over the road stuff before you decided to whether change course or start your own authority? I know eventually, I don't know if that's a new thing or
Mm.
if you did the OTR thing working for the people for a while or what.
No, man, I bounced around a lot. I wanted to try everything from chemicals to flatbed to LTL freight. I did a little bit of everything because I wanted to know what part of the industry that would catch me and make me commit. So the one company that I have to always give praise to is Landstar. 2005, I worked with them. I did OTR, and working with them, it taught me about working with brokers because they train you to negotiate your own loads with their brokers, their in-house brokers. So I did that, and that's when I learned about flatbeds. I had did flatbed before, but that's when I learned the true ins and outs of it, and that's when I learned about heavy haul initially. And yeah, so then from there, 2007. Well, 2005 Katrina hit, so that kind of delayed everything. But then fast forward into 2007, that's when I started my own authority in 2007 initially.
Okay, man. So you've been in even having your own authority game for a grip, man. That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
Again, I appreciate you coming on here dropping these gems. Not everybody. We were just talking about this off camera. Is that even me being in it 10 years, being in it 20 years, and then getting to the level you're at. There ain't many people independently that have done that. There's a lot of 20 year veterans drivers working for people, but not everybody jumps out and is resourceful, wants to start their own company, and then actually succeeds. When, like I said, we were talking about the failure rate being 89% in the first year for independent authorities, right?
Yeah.
So, could you describe a significant challenge, that you really like a memorable, significant challenge you had to overcome in the early days that led to where you are here? That one, you're like, oh, I'm sure there's many. Like I have many.
Mhm.
You have probably a laundry list of them. But can you be like that one thing that like this is gonna put me out of business? I'm screwed. But you
Yeah.
overcame it.
So working with owner operators at the time, 2014, I kind of ushered my first one in. I was sampling that, just kind of seeing how it works to bring someone else on. So I backed away, came back to it, and then I want to say around 17 or 18, my safety scores jumped. I'm talking about I had a 50-50 safety score, which means you got 10 inspections, 5 of them are bad, right? And of course, mine weren't those specific numbers. I think I was like 2 and 4 at the time.
Right.
And I had an audit, and I had kind of made some adjustments at the time because I knew the audit was coming. It wasn't my first. But with that being said, I had to make an adjustment. I let a few people go, and then around that time is when I decided, you know what, let's go heavy haul. Let's get into a trailer that they need me more than I need them. Because at that point, man, I was calling people and they were hanging up in my face like, nah, man, we're not giving you out loads. Because when your safety scores jump like that, you have to do something to rectify it quickly. So what I did was I went out. I let everybody go that I had. I went out and I did a lot of inspections. I was insistent inspections so that they would give me the inspections I need to overcome the bad numbers. And then once I got about 6 inspections, that allowed me to drop the numbers from being 50-50 to being around 30%. National average, I want to say, is around 23%. So
Right.
I was getting closer to that. And then when I got the numbers below that, man, but at that time, that was my first time going through that. And the information wasn't readily available like it is now. People weren't handing out information. They weren't selling it back then either. So it's like, I had to kind of figure out a way to work through that challenge. And what I decided was I need better inspections and I need to make sure that I eliminate any problems. So when I went in there to do the audit, the guy, and I'm not gonna say names, but they asked me, they say, listen, in order for me to let you go and give you a chance to progress, he said, what are you gonna do to make sure this doesn't ever happen again. At that time, my audit was considered a 365-day audit. They wanted to look back 365 days from that day because that's when the biggest problem started. And so eventually what I did was I said, listen, anybody with an out of service, I'm shutting it down. One of my trucks had one, and the other owner operators, they had it too. So I shut everything down. I had just brought a new truck, and then from there I went on because I bought that truck in 2018, the Peterbilt I have. So I bought that truck and I moved on. And then from there, I grew my company back, and here I am.
Awesome, man. That's a testimonial right there that not everybody has. I mean, I've been through multiple audits, and just the same situation. You know what I mean? In the early days, we had window tint tickets, we had fire. I mean, the silly stuff you don't think about. And you went from the driver level. I never worked for anybody to get the training or the information. So mine went really like to 80%. You know, in the first year in my first company. Because the fire extinguishers not being mounted, we would buy them for the trucks. Guys would just throw them in there and set them in there. You know, not having safety triangles, just a lot of stupid stuff that would. I mean, I think we had 1 year 15 window tint tickets. You know, so
Wow.
it was like, you know, and I was like, who cares? You know, I didn't know nothing about trucking or safety score. I didn't even know what a safety score was when I started my company. I had no clue. When we did our first new entry audit, they didn't explain that to me in Arkansas. So I had the same thing, and then you call up one day and they're like, oh, your safety score is too high, we can't work with you. And you're like, what the hell is a safety score? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how I found out. Like, we're like 6 months into this. And I'm like, what the F is a safety score? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an awesome testimonial, man.
Hey, look, I'm sure you want to tell them find time to tell me that now, huh? About a
Yeah,
safety score.
right.
Right.
So it's just, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, what are some key lessons that you really learned through your professional journey, that you think will benefit the listeners? That was one of them, obviously. So I mean, if I usually have the little machine, I throw some gunshots in there, some ding dings, but man, those are huge lessons right there. But what's one more that you could give the listeners just as like a little tidbit?
So for me, at this point in my career, I like to plan 1 to 2 years in advance. What that allowed me to do is to move through things flawlessly, and then I just tweak the plan as needed based on what's happening. So in other words, I may have made plans to add, say, 5 trucks, go out and buy 5 trucks, right? Well, that is the plan, but between now and then, it may be something that happened. I mean, politics alone will change the whole culture. Who's in office? Who's doing this locally and nationally as well. So what happens is sometimes you have to change that plan, and you may say, okay, well, instead of buying 5 trucks, I'll buy 5 trailers, kind of like what you were talking about, and lease them out. Or you may have to change course and say, you know what, I wanted to buy trucks and expand, but what I'll end up doing is buying a different low boy. So it's good to plan ahead and then make adjustments as you go, because at least you have a plan in place to make those adjustments too.
Right. 100%. Couldn't agree with you more, man. Um, so what's a big win, man, when you look back at your career? And I know this one's hard also because it could be all the way back to the day you got your CDL. I mean, that was a big win for me, man. The day we got our authority active, the day I bought my first truck, the day, you know, when I first started, I actually I rented a bunch of Enterprise trucks, man. And I just kept getting them kind of like the Tow Piglet way, a good friend of mine. But I just sat down one day and realized I ain't making no money. This shit don't work, right?
Right, right.
And so I remember the first day I bought my first truck, man. I went down there, you know, put the money down and signed away and drove. And I just thought I was the shit in this truck, man. I thought, dang, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. We're going to take it from here. And then the motor blew up at 50,000 miles, a whole nother story, right? But what's a big win you look back on, a significant one, whether it be the day you bought the RGN, you got whatever it is, that you're like, man, you know, it started from the bottom, now we're here, type of thing. Like you took back and was just like, man, you know, this is real. We're really going to do this, and at a big level or whatever. What's that big win for you?
Yeah, I tell you, man, honestly, my biggest win is when credit started leading the way. You know, I did so much cash in the beginning, man. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't just gonna buy the world up with cash. And then I realized, man, that credit is a powerful tool, you know. So when I first gained access to credit, and I'm talking about business credit, not personal. When I first gained access to credit, man, and I was able to start making purchases, buying trucks, buying things. I was buying trucks out of Canada. Like I was doing everything, and it felt like, you know, I really felt like, you know what, I made it now. I have the tools. So that was my biggest thing when I gained credit. Like I said, I started financing equipment, making purchases, and doing things that I couldn't do because I was so old school with it. When my dad would buy a wrecked truck or buy something that needed to be repaired, and we would get out there and rebuild it. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a valuable lesson changing transmissions and clutches and motors and all that stuff, but it's a whole nother ball game, man, when you can just walk in there and finance this stuff and it already runs good. It's already, what it needs to be, and you take off and run it with it. So I would say that was my most exciting moment, man, when I got credit and I was able to just go over there and buy what I wanted, trucks, trailers, whatever. And yeah, I mean, till this day, man, I value that credit like nothing else, man. It's a powerful
Yeah.
tool. Yeah.
Hey, you that is something you're not lying to, and that's another thing that I tell my clients all the time. You can't do any business if you don't start
Hmm.
building some business credit right away. And there's
Yeah.
credit counseling, credit, all kind of ways to learn how to do that. And a lot of people that come up in the game think that your personal credit is what you have to leverage,
Hmm.
and that won't get you very far. Your personal credit
Right.
in business won't actually get you very far, because when you get to a certain level, it's about what the business can do, what the business is making, and the
Hmm.
credit that the business itself has built, which you know that by now. But one of my good friends who's a multimillionaire, I mean, he can go in anywhere and buy anything and buy 10 of them on business credit because of how well he's paid his business bills and how long he's had that business credit established now. And it's been, 10 years of
Hmm.
just, a huge amount of business credit. And like you said, it changes the game. It really makes things possible where you can walk in and get good interest rates and good leverage and buy equipment that you need when you go get a contract or whatever. So you're
I agree.
100% right
Yeah.
there. Couldn't agree more. Um, what emerging trends do you see happening right now? And I know everybody's going to, you might even lean back on the heavy haul thing because, Wad, all these guys, Benny's in it now. I did a bunch of stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of people doing it. C1, everybody. But what other emerging trends do you see in the industry right now, or coming?
So honestly, I'm not even gonna talk trucking on this question, right? Not so far as a specific niche. I think it's becoming a clear line between major and minor. I think that if you're jumping into trucking now, you're gonna have to start planning different. It's not just buy a truck, get a trailer and take off. A lot of the companies in between are suffering. Like those mid-tier companies are suffering, and I think the majors are making sure that happened by lowering the freight. If you think about it, freight used to be in sections and tiers, and a little guy like you said earlier dominated. I want to say 85% of the industry so far as the trucks on the road. The major companies had to rely on the little guy. Okay,
Right,
now the major companies are drawing a clear line by saying we're either going to move the freight or we're going to hand the freight off, but we will touch the freight.
right,
Okay, and what they're doing is they're eliminating all competition that can be close to them. So if you're not in a percentile of a couple thousand trucks already, and you're in that 100 truck range, I think what's happening is they're squeezing down on the prices. Because if you notice, the little guy is not falling. We're feeling the effects, but we're not falling at the same rate that all the companies in the mid tier are falling. So I think if you ask me about trends, I think the new trend is going to be a clear line divide between the majors and the minors, and everything in between is getting squished out.
I I could not have said that better. That is the most articulate answer that I've heard in a while. Because I'm telling you, strong will survive. You got to get the right knowledge, the right information, the right leverage. And we were talking about that a minute ago. That the negative narrative everybody's painting on the internet about doom and gloom. I'm so tired of hearing it, because just because there's so many companies that don't run a good business or don't have the right knowledge or aren't willing to learn, innovate, and adapt, the rest of us is just, we're out here slitting throats. It's too easy for us because we know that, hey, when times get tough, we got to get lean. We got to do the right things. And we made the plans to not over leverage, to not get in bad positions for times like this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it sounds like you're definitely a man that makes those type of decisions. And I couldn't have said that any better. I mean, that's perfect. You're 100% right. And I think that after COVID, it became a independent market, right? Like we could name our price on the low boards, 4.9. I ain't taking it. I want $5 a mile. Well, supply and demand, and that's in anything. I don't care if you're selling widgets, if you got a landscaping company, you got whatever, a fishing charter. It's supply and demand, right? So now it's a customer market and a shipper market, right? So the brokers, the customers, and the shippers have the power, and there's a lot of capacity. So if you ain't a good negotiator, or if you have too much leverage, or your cost to run is too high, and operate, I'm sorry for you, but that's economics,
Right.
101, like you said. But what really does suck, and it does bite all of us in the ass, is that us at this level, we can't really compete because they're the ones out there. They have control of the market, right? There's more of us as far as trucks on the road, like you said, but they're the ones out there that have the power to legislate. They're the ones out there going to the meetings. They're the ones out there meeting with Walmart and these other companies and saying, give us that $100 million freight and then let us handle it from there. We'll take care of the headaches. And then they're keeping all the rate. We just did a load that came down. We ended up going direct and cutting the broker out, but we had a 18 and a half wide load that originally paid 25 and we accepted it at 15 and then worked our way up. I found who the customer was and just cut. It was a new broker. So we just cut them out, went straight to the top and got it for the 25, but they was trying to keep $10,000 and not do anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
On the load. And I mean, if we would have really done that load at 15 and not for the 25, by the time we paid escorts and police escorts and permits and everything else, man, there ain't enough meat on the bone for the heavy haul guys, but they're trying to do that. They really are.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, big time.
And so I think just like you're setting yourself up right, putting the right stones in place to step on and to be set up right. And then from here on out, I'm the same way. I think, like we were talking earlier, there's so much piece of the pie. I'm not going to give up my portion as a lease on company or anything like that. You ain't either. So the broker's got to go. I mean, that's the only person, and then you got to go to the customer and say, hey, I'm not ever going to be the cheapest, but what I do comes with results. My name, I'm going to have a truck there and we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And if we don't, we're going to tell you we can't do it and we're not going to send a truck in there and you don't have to worry about it. Right. Whereas you want to go cheap, you're going to get cheap results,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I love to ask everybody that comes on the show, because I want to get in your head and kind of see how you think. And I've studied you now for a little bit. You're a very articulate individual. How do you approach decision making? That's something that's super important. How do you, when problems or difficult issues or just even day to day, things happen, how does Joe approach decision making day to day for your company and your the way you do things?
Right. Yeah. Good question. Honestly, the first thing I like to do when I'm encountered with an issue, problem, good or bad, right, is I want to look at a positive outlook on it. So I want to find the positivity in it. For example, let's just say I was running a lane, hypothetically, and maybe I wasn't aware of something, but I had ran that lane 1,000 times and got away with it, right? And then next thing I know, I learned about it. Like, for instance, when what is it called where you pay for the amount of trucks that you have every year? You renew
UCR.
it. UCR, right? I didn't know about that, and I got away with it for years. Okay.
I don't mean to sidestep you, but that's so fucking funny you brought this up. So we didn't pay our UCR because every year we forget. And you know how we find out? They usually stop a truck at the scale house. Okay. Or you can't order your permits, right?
Right.
That's so funny that you bring that up. And we just literally yesterday, right? We're going to Pennsylvania, or no, we're going through Kentucky with this 18 and a half wide going to Pittsburgh from Houston. And everybody cleared all the permits, clear. We get to Kentucky and they're like, oh, you didn't pay your UCR, you can't get your permits. And I'm just like, damn. I told, because my wife handles that. I was like, but it's November. What the hell? Like, because that usually comes out, I think, in February, March or something. Mm-hmm. So I was like, what the hell? So then, but then she has to go pay it. And it's, $1,000 or whatever. It ain't that much money at the size of fleet we are. It's like, I don't know, it's like $780 or something like that. But anyway, they have to update it in the system online. They won't send you any proof to clear it with the other state. And what pisses me off is that state, I'm good in Kentucky where it was. All our shit is good there, but they're worried about it with another state, and it's just stupid stuff like that. Or if the filing, or something like that. But that's funny. We didn't pay our UCR, so we couldn't order a permit. I'm like, how does this even come up? This late in the year.
The funny thing is, but you think about it, all the permits you've ordered, all the money you've made all year long, and then you get to this point, and then the fine normally is like what, $350 to $500 or something like that you pay. So it's like that's an example. Like when you encounter that, the first thing I do is I look at it from a positive. I'm like, you know what? I made $300,000-$400,000 this year. And now finally I get to the UCR file and I got this penalty. Say, you know what, man, it could have been worse. So just pay the fine and move forward. I like to rationalize everything that happens and find the positivity in it, no matter how negative it is, because one thing I learned, negativity consumes way more space than positivity. You know what I'm saying? And I like to take ownership for anything that happens on my watch. I don't care who did it. I don't care how wrong it was. I allowed it. It's my fault. Because one thing I learned about a mess, if I make the mess, I know I have to clean it up. If someone
Yep.
else makes a mess, I'm waiting on them to clean it up. And they may not ever clean it up, right?
Yep.
So I just own it. This is my house. You made a mess. Listen, I'll clean it up. Go ahead. And then one thing I know is done and I can move past it. So that's how my decision making works. I'm gonna find the
I
positive
love
side
that.
of it. Yeah, and I'm gonna clean it up. If it happens on my watch, it's my fault. I'll eat whatever the problem was. You keep it moving. One thing I know for sure, you won't make that mistake again because I won't let you. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And yeah, and then we're gonna move forward. I don't waste a lot of time um um dealing with mistakes and blaming someone else for them. It's just, yo, let's get to it. Let's find a
That's
solution.
why right there, why you're so successful. And I think we have a lot of similarities because I do the exact same thing. I don't even get mad at people anymore. I'm like, you know
Yeah,
what? It ain't
yeah,
even your fault. It's my
yeah,
fault. I get mad at myself for allowing this to
yeah,
happen. Either I didn't give you the right tools, resources, training, or set you up for success. I did it to myself. Because
yeah.
people will let you down if you let them all the time. Everybody. It'll be your wife, your kids, anybody. If you put them in a position for failure and don't give them the right information, knowledge, whatever they need, set them up for the right thing, and you're a leader, which it sounds like you are. It sounds like you're a really good leader of your team, your
Yeah.
people, everything you got going on. And I'm the same way, and I just get mad at myself. That's how I do it too.
Mhm.
So that's
Hey, and
awesome that you think like
it's
that.
the best person to get mad at anyway.
It is. It is. Because all you're gonna do, what are you gonna do? You're gonna talk bad. Uh,
Yeah,
God
I
bless
ain't
my
arguing
wife. I
back.
love her to death. I don't know if your wife's in partners with you or not, but my wife is, and
Uh-huh,
she's my. I couldn't do what I do without her and be who I am. But she's
uh-huh.
made mistakes, but it ain't like I haven't. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so when she makes a mistake, paperwork wise or whatever, like that, we were joking about the penalty on the UCR. They've got me 3-4 years running. I paid that penalty every year because we forget it. And it's just
Yeah.
cost to do a business. And I'd be like, damn, but what am I gonna do? I'm gonna get mad. If I really wanted it done, I'd micromanage it, put a reminder on my phone, I'd do something, right? And I
But
don't. So
you know how you fix that? You just tell yourself, there goes her steak.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And you
Yeah.
just keep it moving. That's all you can do, really. I mean,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you
Don't
can't
even
at the
say
end
it
of the day, you
loud.
can't bring that into the bedroom. So it ain't gonna
Yeah.
work for you.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's what it is, man. That's 100% why you're successful. And if
Uh-huh.
anybody that's watching this is looking at like that picture I just showed on Instagram with uh his truck and equipment, you don't get to that level. You do not get to that equipment. You do not get to that level of decision making without thinking like that. That man
Right.
holds himself accountable and he owns his shit and he deals with it. And that's how you get it done at that level. So
Yes, sir.
um, man, one we want to get into because this is personalizing you now, and I love to do that and actually, give flowers and personalize you. But who do you look up, mentor? Who do you look up resources wise? Can you recommend books, resources, influential figures? I know you said one that I've actually got a bunch of tattoos and stuff about in another video, but who do you look up to? Who has kind of been an influence in your life? Celebrity, personal, book, anybody that's made a profound impact in your life, your thinking, which ultimately leads to where you're at in your career.
Yeah, so I can't do an interview or even answer that question on any platform without first acknowledging my pops, man. Um, One thing he did do is he didn't speak in the time, he spoke in advance because he felt like if you made it to that point in life, then it'll make sense to you then. So to this day, I still live by things that he said to me. You know what I'm saying? And I use that as a constant reminder that, you know what, I'm 42 now. So and I remember him saying something XYZ to this effect. And then when I see it in real life, that conversation comes back to me now. And I look for it now because, I know now from being younger and those times have, met up with me. But just a person who's outside of that inner circle of mine, The Rich Dad Poor Dad. Love that book. Powerful. If you haven't read it,
Yeah,
by
Robert
Robert
Kiyosaki, Rich
Kiyosaki,
Dad Poor
yeah,
Dad. That's one of the
go.
first success books I read. It's a great book.
You have to read it. You have to not just read it. You have to dissect it and you have to process it. If you don't do that, then you'll miss the whole message because it was important the comparison that he showed throughout the whole book about learning two methodologies about life. And what he did
Mhm.
smartly was he compared both. And he lived probably basically still by both. And you can tell because of the way he wrote the book. So I would tell anybody, definitely take some time to go and read that book. I heard about it for years before I tapped into it. One of my things was that may have slowed me down from some of the younger people was I wanted to experience life and have some success and failures on my own. And then I wanted to do somewhat research. So I lived my 20s, man, wild, not wild like getting in trouble, stuff like that. But I lived it wild where I just hey, look, I tried this, I tried that, I tried this, I tried that, I did this, I did that, I went here, I went there. Because what I wanted to do is be as exploratory as I can in my 20s, right? I want to narrow it down in my 30s. And then my method from there, when I hit my 40s, go get rich, right? And then 50s, enjoy that. 60s and 70s, just enjoy it all. So now I'm in that get rich stage. And that was important to me. So I took a slower path because I wanted to explore and see what I love and what I didn't love so I can exit out in my 30s and master what I did love. And the beauty of that, you know what I'm saying, is when you read books like that, they expedite the process. So even though I goofed off and did some things in my 20s, I was able to tap into stuff like that and read it. I actually had read Michelle Obama book too, and I listened at her process of standing behind and letting someone else lead, but having so many thoughts and decisions in your mind, and then you're close to that person, so you do have their ear at hand, but the importance of that was learning to be a follower before you take the leadership role, because that is what helped you prepare for that, and it also helps you understand what the person that's second command to you should be doing as well when you master following and then lead yourself to leadership. And I didn't say that from a political standpoint because I'm not even much of a voter like that. I just said that from people who things that I've read, and what I gained from that when I read it, and what I took from it, my experiences of reading it.
That's profound, man. Two things I want to repeat. The first thing you said, um, is that your father spoke uh, not in time but in advance. That is very profound. A very I love that statement. I'm gonna have to circle that back to that. Probably put that at the front. But the second thing is out of that book that you got from her is that you got to understand what it's like to be in the shoes of the follower before you can be the leader, and
Mm.
that is again a profound statement because that that's a perfect example of like even things that I say. I always say, I never people always be like, I want to go into coaching and doing this. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that unless you've been there, done that. That's why I
Right.
wanted to go to Canada. That's why I went and got my TWIC. That's why I went and got hazmat. That's why I went and did these things. Why I went and did heavy haul. That's why I went and did all of these things and put it on YouTube and was transparent as possible and showed every step of the process so nobody could look at me and say, hey, you're a fraud. That's the, and even to this day, I went to seminars and spoke at events, and I'll say things, and I'm always thinking I have what do you call it? Imposter syndrome. I don't think what I'm saying is good enough, right? But
Yeah.
then I'll say stuff and I watch their brains explode, like boom, 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 boom. And they're like,
Right.
dude, it's overload. Like if you tell me anymore, and I'm sure you experience the same thing,
Uh-huh.
but you still feel like, what I had to say is good, but is it enough? Am I enough? I'm always thinking I gotta solve it from the top down. I gotta give them the whole pie, but you can't just nuke them. You gotta sprinkle a little bit of information and let them take it from there. But like
Mhm.
you said, man, you got to be a follower before you can be a leader. That's definitely a profound statement.
Yeah, I appreciate
Um,
that. Mhm.
so how does Joe manage a work-life balance, man? That's something I'm always asking people because you still rolling, you still trucking, and you
Mhm.
got the big setup. You driving the big dog, 11 or 13, right? Something with 11
Mhm.
axle. And so, you still working it and at that level, it makes sense and you still making money.
Mhm.
But how do you manage a work-life balance? You got a family, you told me you
Mhm.
got daughters that, going to school, all that kind of thing. How does Joe manage that?
So one of the things was I grind real hard when I was young, right? I did a lot of running. So what I did was I worked my way, of course, to heavy haul because it's not something that I have to go out and do every day anymore. With other trucks running, of course, that helps balance that out. And then now with the heavy haul, man, like for instance, last month, I did 2 loads, and man, those 2 loads, net take home, I want to say put me somewhere around 50K. And so what that allowed me to do was I could take the rest of the month off. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm almost an average what they call him soccer mom. I'm a soccer dad. You know what I'm saying? Look, I pick up my kids, man, I drop them off as much as I can. It allows me a lot of opportunity, man, to be home. So you got to run up that ladder as fast as you can when you get the opportunity, because the further you get up the ladder, the rate per mile goes up. And when that go up, it allows you more home time. You don't have to work as much. So that's how I balance it. But when it's work, it's all work. My wife and my kids know it come first. Like I just spent a week out in Houston with the last load I did, and it just is what it is. I had the opportunity to come home, but I say, nah, I'm out here for work because I'm out here for business. I've been home the last month, hadn't done much, just chilled out pretty much. So yeah, when it's work, it's work, and then when it's play, it's play. My wife and I, we're in a transition because we have older kids and younger kids. So I have a daughter that just left for college. I have a son that graduated a couple years ago, and I have a son that's graduating now, this year. And then we have two younger kids. So I kind of got a period in between. But the older kids, what we did was we vacationed with them every other year, and then we did something locally with them on our year while we went far and did what we wanted to do. So we kind of split the years even odd and stuff like that. And then that was very beneficial because the kids got to pick locations. We gave them two foreign countries, and then they can go anywhere domestically they wanted. And then
That's awesome.
that spaced it out because it was every other year, so we was able to plan for those trips. And I'm gonna tell you, man, one of those trips we spun 2 weeks on the road. Literally, we were gone
That's
for 2 weeks
awesome.
from hotel to hotel. We went from we left New Orleans, Birmingham, Louisville, Kentucky for a family reunion. We stopped over in Detroit, my wife's hometown. We went to Toronto. We stayed over in Mississauga. We went to Niagara Falls. We went to New York, DC, and we stayed in Jersey the whole time we were in New York. So we kind of hit both areas, DC, and the last stop was Lookout Mountain. Right, when we got to Lookout Mountain in Tennessee in Chattanooga, the kids were like, "Nah, keep going. We're not stopping anymore. Just keep
Right.
going. We want to go home." So it was pretty fun, and it was a cool experience because we did everything from touring the Capitol. We tried to get passes to get in the White House, but we didn't get approved at the time because it was like I think when we applied, it was so late.
Yeah, I
But we
think you
did
got
get
to
the
do that.
Capitol.
My buddy just did that. I just went to New York, but it's funny how me and you probably the same. We've been all over the country,
Mhm.
but we never really stopped to enjoy the country.
Right.
Sometimes you can with a truck, but it's hard. And I've been
Mhm.
through DC a bunch of times, and I've always wanted to do that. But my buddy, we were talking about it. We just went on a trip to up to New York. I did the city. I've been through New York a million times. Never went to New York
Mhm.
City and explored it, and I finally got to do that. But the same thing with DC. But he just went and did that. He had the same trouble. He said you got to do that like 3 weeks in advance in order to make it happen.
Yeah, you want to definitely be in advance when you do it because if not, they won't approve you. And it was cool though. We got to see the Capitol. We went to we seen all the states and we stood by states on the little walkway. I can't think of the name whether the water is in between or whatever. But it's been so long since I went.
Yeah, that's where the
But
Lincoln
anyway,
Memorial is and all that over there.
yeah,
And yeah,
exactly. Exactly. So we did that. So it was pretty cool. But we had some cool experiences. The main thing is like for us, I'm the biggest kid on the trip. Look, 6 o'clock in the morning, yo, let's get up, y'all. Wake up. I'm jumping on the kids in the bed. Get up, let's go. And man, look, I mean, I don't have the energy anymore, but we would leave early in the morning. And when I tell you we didn't get back till late, and the next morning we did the same thing again, and then we got back late. And like I tell my younger kids, I said, well, y'all your older siblings got to fund me. Now y'all about to get the responsible me. So,
right.
but yeah, nah, it was great, man. Because like my
That's
wife and I,
awesome,
our
man.
vacations are different, man. Like we go, we wake up and grab breakfast, then we come back to the room, we sleep through the middle of the day, and then we out at night, hanging out, having fun, doing whatever we can get into in the nightlife, respectively. But yeah, we hanging out. We want to go see that city and do what adults do.
Right,
So, but yeah,
right.
that's how I balance it, man. I work hard and then I play hard.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that, and I say that all the time when clients call me, or you see the upset negative narrative of the down economy recession right now. Everybody talking about it, and I say, look, man, life's about setup. You didn't set it up
Mm,
right, and it sounds like you had it. You're setting it up right, and you making the plans to
mm,
live life the way you want to. Even like saying taking the time to go out with the wife. I'm a big proponent of that. You got to go back to why you got together in the first place. It wasn't just for the kids; those are secondary. Unfortunately, you got to remember why you did. Why y'all
mm.
got together, fell in love, whatever. And you got to do that by going on date night and going out. Otherwise, it don't, in my opinion, make a marriage work long term.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I heard somebody say you got to date your wife, regularly.
right.
Once a month, y'all should go on a date. So, we don't get to date a lot, like go out at night, but I do go out to, I take her to lunch all the time. Like
Yeah,
whenever I'm
and that
home, we'll
that
go out to
that's
lunch.
all it
Yeah.
takes, man, is going to lunch, going to and when my wife or
Hmm.
my kids in school or was in school, they're homeschooled now, but when they were in school, I live by the beach, we would go get breakfast, drop them off, go get breakfast on the beach every, at least 2 days a week,
Hmm.
and then come back because and it's we're also business partners basically, so we're
Hmm.
always some days we're adversaries more than we are a team, you know what I mean? So that
Right.
little bit of that little bit of time makes all the difference.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so man, let's jump into the heavy haul side of things. I know everybody wants to hear that. Everybody wants the
Hmm.
numbers. You got the followers. Everybody that you're good friends. Actually, somebody put your name out as far as a mentorship that was recently on and said that you helped them out a lot. but you seem to be definitely one of the top heavy haul guys in the game that's really probably doesn't have the notoriety that you should have yet. I'm sure, like as we spoke off camera, that it's going to happen for you and it's going to blow up, and you definitely deserving of it. Um, but you just did a big load, right? There was the Houston one that you put on there. It was like 18 tall or something like that. It was a big load, a lot of service in the load, a lot of escorts, a lot of permits, a lot of things go into a load like that, right? Can you talk about that for a quick minute?
Yeah, sure,
Like what
sure.
goes into it?
So the load specifically was 117 feet and a half long length, and then width was 1611, so you call it 17, and then the height was 19. I was about 185,000 pounds on the weight, so it's considered a super load because of the height, the width, and the weight doesn't really push it to super, but the other dimensions do. We planned that trip for about 2 months. Louisiana, man, is brutal on loads like that. So it took me 2 months to get through that process. Once we completed it, we had to go from Louisiana to Texas. Texas was easy, a couple days a week or so. And then,
Yeah, Texas is the best one. They're super easy
yeah,
on everything. They're like, go ahead.
exactly, man. I love
They just want
Texas.
the money.
So yes, that's it. So, and they've already built everything big anyway, right? So,
Right, right,
but so yeah, so we get the process going. So we have to have all together is about a 50-man crew. All of the utility companies throughout the state who route we had to pass through, which is 2 different districts. All of the cable companies, everyone had to show up, lift their lines. It was a lot of stuff that had to be done in advance, working with the permit officers and things of that nature. So then when we get past that point of initial setup, we set off on our journey. You know what I'm saying? It was probably like a 400-mile trip with the outer routes, 250 straight mile, 400 outer route, with outer route. And then we get through that. It took us a day and a half to get there. When it was all said and done, it ended up being right around like a $60,000 load. And the reason why I say right around, because what happens is what people don't know what these type of loads is, a lot of these charges are put in place in the end. So, a lot of people, they think that they have to bid these lows correctly. It's not necessarily the case. You just have to know how to structure contracts correctly in order to accomplish the goal that you're trying to get. A negotiation is a negotiation for a reason. That's when you open up and say what you think and what you think is best. So that's what we did, man. I worked with an awesome broker on it, who I'm not going to mention, but he was real knowledgeable. Between he and I, with my experience and his experience, we got it done. And the process went through flawlessly. When it was all said and done, we invoiced, I want to say, should have been around 60. And then what people don't realize on those type of loads, this not your average broker. He has to make money too.
right,
So with my broker and I, we pretty much where we kind of did somewhat of a split on a load, but he covered expenses on his end. You see what I'm saying? And then he was able to take whatever he was able to save. So if he was able to cut costs and get the guy for cheaper, hey, that's fine. Just give me my half and you deal with all that over there on your own. A lot of expenses were upfront. So you're talking probably somewhere in the neighborhood like $20,000 worth of expenses. But, people don't realize you want good people out there and you want to pay for it. You may cut corners on a load that's 12 feet 1 inch wide because you're knowing you're only an inch over anyway, and hire, just some pilot car guy that's just really out there with a radio, and the car may not even make the whole trip, right?
right.
But when you get to these type of lows, man, I'm telling you, go out and seek the best. Because if you bump that load against anything, you're not getting another shot at
Right.
all. It's over. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the important things for me, to get it done. And I hired some of the best in the industry to do it.
So another thing that is kind of like a fallacy in this industry is everybody. I don't know if it's because everybody online doing the heavy haul stuff, or even myself, who I don't know how many of us to blame, but everybody wants to get into it, right? I've had a
Mhm.
few guys here lately come lease on with us that went out and bought equipment, and they just wasn't built for the oversized space, right?
Mhm.
But how in this one particularly, you said the broker covered the expenses, which is awesome. That all doesn't always happen though. But in a case like where you got to front that, people don't realize that you got to pay all that out. Those escorts
Mhm.
don't have factoring companies like we do. Those and you can't get an advance to pay them. And then also, like say you got to buy permits. There's no factoring company's going to front you to pay permits, right? Some states you got to be bonded when you get into super load status, but let's just assume we're talking about a regular load, not a super load. All this stuff has to be paid. A lot of the escorts, they want Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, whatever cash on as soon as it reaches destination. And in our case, we got to factor or wait, or maybe we're not factoring, you're doing quick pays. Maybe you're doing, you're stable enough that you're just waiting on the check to come in 30, 60, 90 days, whatever. But you still got to front all that cost. So on other loads that I know you're astute enough or stable enough in your business to cover that stuff now, like we are.
Mhm.
How do you manage that? Is there a line of credit for that? Is there you put it on a credit card? You got cash that you built up over the years? Because people don't think about that. They think they can buy a trailer, buy a truck, and now I'm doing heavy haul, and I got a factoring company and a fuel card. But that's not going to get you the job done, is it?
No, it's not. And just one correction on the load. So the broker did not cover the whole cost. It's just going to come off his side.
I got
What
you.
happened
Okay.
was, yeah, we negotiated what I was going to pay and what he's going to pay. But either way, the cut go when the split breaks down, then
Right. So
what I
sometimes they'll
pay,
be like,
yeah,
okay, we'll
it'll
cover permits, or we'll cover permits and
yeah,
escorts, and you
or
cover everything else, or what a
exactly. And in my
survey, like
case,
there's
we
route
had
surveys that go into it people don't know about.
yeah,
And
exactly,
each state requires that. Some states require bond. Like there's a lot more that goes into it. So
yeah.
he agreed to pay X, you agreed to pay X, but you still had to front all of your X
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as soon
So
as it was
basically,
done.
to make a lot of sense, whoever he hired is who he paid. Whoever I
Right.
hired is who I paid. And then that's kind of how that part broke down. But now from the financial standpoint, yes, you have to keep money on hand because this is the thing. You know this, you're in heavy haul as well. Sometimes these lows top 5 grand at a time. And most of those loads, even though I do factor, I don't factor those. So
Right.
I'll do a net 30 with those, sometimes a net 45, where I'm waiting 30 to 45 days for the money. But what happens is that you have to have that kind of cost. Because if you do 4 loads this month, and each one of them costs you 5 grand between pilot costs, permits, and that, and all the stuff that come with it, fuel, things of that nature. You're tying up that money for 30 days and it's gone. It's locked in that rate. And then, of course, you have to balance it out. And that's what people don't understand. A lot of people are not structured properly to be able to do heavy haul. They get by with it because the market allows it. But when the market tighten down like it is right now and you're not structured properly, you start seeing for sale signs everywhere. And it's simply because they're not balanced out. They don't have enough flats and step decks and stuff like that in their fleet to help manage those trucks being parked for a certain amount of time, or manage even when they're running full time to be able to balance out that 5 grand stuck in this load, 3 grand in this load, 6 grand in that load, or the load like I just did where you might have 10 or 15 tied up in it in the time space that it takes for 30 days. So a lot of people just not structured properly. And that was one of the things that I promoted a lot. When I first started, talking on social media platforms, you have to be structured properly in order to sustain that type of money being locked away.
Right, exactly. And everybody thinks I can just go get a truck, trailer, factoring company, fuel card. I can go get these loads off the low board and start doing them. And there are, heavy haul, oversized RGN loads on the low boards and stuff, but you have no idea what you're really getting into, and you got to front
Mhm.
all that money. And if you
Yeah.
ain't got it, you're gonna get halfway into it. Then what? Then you're gonna have a load hostage in the middle of the load, and you can't pay
Mhm.
the permit for the permits. You can't pay for the route surveys, and they
Mhm.
want paid up front. They won't even do. I have maybe one or two companies that I'm established with that trust us, that'll go do the survey and charge us later. Most of them
Yeah.
want the money up front, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and it's just hiring professionals. I mean, a lot of the times, like you say, you get the best people, man. And when I tell you, when you've worked with them people,
right.
yeah, I got a guy that I can call out of up north Louisiana. Matter of fact, I might as well just plug him. He works for Vidalia Marshals with Vidalia Dispatch, and I won't call his name specific because it's a team of them. But whatever one you get, you'll be fine with them. But one thing I like about them, total professionals, man. When I tell you they get the job done, they get the job done. Now I do have another pilot car that I use on other projects, smaller projects, and I call them pretty consistent. But one good thing is my son, he's looking to get into it, so he's going to probably eventually become a pilot car guy. He'll follow me around, and then when I'm not using him, I'll put him with other people, of course, throughout the industry. On
Right.
top of my flatbeds
That's
when
what
they
a lot
do
of
it.
the bigger companies do anyway. People have asked me
Yeah.
all the time why we haven't done it already, and I'm just like, I don't
Hmm.
know, man. It's a whole nother headache you got to deal with, and those guys aren't regulated like CDL guys are. We can't really force them to drug test and stuff like that. So then you got another liability. And that's why I haven't done it.
Hmm.
But if it's family and son, it's probably somebody you could trust.
Yeah.
Um, so This is a good question right here, right? Is so I kind of consider anything that's like a 40 ton, not really heavy haul, right? It'd be 30 in the
Mhm.
well, whatever, more oversized. I call it oversized freight because we run oversized on hot shots. We'll do 15.5, 16, 18 wide pools, plastic pools and stuff,
Mhm.
fiberglass pools, all kinds of wide loads. That's how I started in the oversized spaces on hot shots. So I kind of consider anything that's in that range, anything that's really even like under, if you're 80,000 and under, you're not really heavy haul, right? If that's legal, right? So even really like under 100,000 pounds, you're not really heavy haul.
Right.
You like permitted, but you're really just oversized, right?
Mhm.
You're not really heavy haul freight at that point. Um, and when we talked off camera about you having a smaller trailer than the setup you have now when you started, so super loads aside, like if anybody don't know what it is, super loads like anything really over probably about 16 wide, 16 tall, and then plus 100 and what do they consider 130,000? No, not even yeah, right around 130 probably super load, right? So how long did you stay in and get your stripes in at the 12 wides, the 13 wides, the 14 wides, the 15 talls, stuff like that, doing that stuff before you ever thought about taking a big load like this super load you're just talking about?
So honestly, so I had done oversized my whole career. The first time I ever did an oversized was 2003, with a company called Dallas and Mavis. Good company. Didn't really do much training. Like they just kind of put me out there back then anyway with the terminal I worked out of. But when I went to Landstar in 2005 is when they kind of sit you down in a classroom and they teach you everything you need to know about trucking. So that was a great experience for me. And Landstar still does a lot for me now. Like I don't have what I have without Landstar because I'm always able to put them on an application when I'm applying for something. Who do you work for? Who do you get your freight from? I work for Landstar. I could have not done one load that whole year for them. But when I put their name on it and they call them to verify, they look at my track record and see how long back I worked for them and the fact that they train me, when they vouch for me every time, man. So hats off to them, salute to them. But anyway, yeah, so I did that for years. With the flatbed, I had no desire to move up into heavy haul. Just be honest with you. What forced me to move up is when my authority took the hit that it took that we talked about earlier. Then at that point, I knew I needed to get a trailer that was more in demand than just a flat or a step. I needed a trailer where they needed me just as much as I needed them. And back then, it was a rare space. It wasn't a lot of people getting in it. Those who were doing it were doing it. So I would say probably I did it for years, all the way up until like 16 or 17. And then at that point, that's when I say, you know what, let's go heavy haul. Let's get a trailer that's in demand. And then from there, I've always pushed the limits. So I've never stayed in the limits. Even with the flatbeds and step decks, I've always done the oversized. What I did learn was it's a world of a difference though. When you
Oh
run
yeah,
an oversized, just oversized, it
right,
is nowhere near the same in being overweight as well. The permits are different, the cost is
right,
different, the calculations is different. So it was still a learning curve, even when I did switch over from just doing oversized, even though it might have been super tall and super wide. When you start adding miles in it, you start adding a whole lot more outer route too for bridges
yeah,
that you can't cross. Look, I make you laugh. I went through a bridge in Arkansas, your home state,
yeah,
and they send you right up the coast, right outside of Oklahoma, whatever that path is, going straight north, like going toward Fayetteville and all that.
yeah, up
And
49.
yeah, 49. It's something called debt, whatever it's called.
Yeah, not Death Valley, but you're talking about
The
some,
path,
yeah,
yeah.
something cave area, like it's kind of like a Hell's Kitchen type of. I know what you're talking about.
Term,
It's
yeah.
I'll think of it here
Well,
in a second. Yeah,
well, it's a flat bridge, right? This is flat. But when you get over
yeah,
that bridge, you're looking down 100 plus feet.
right,
But the tonnage on the bridge is like 20 tons.
right.
And
There's a
they like,
lot of
yo,
that in Arkansas, Oklahoma
yeah,
area. You're doing a
yeah, it's
lot of
like,
outer route in those two states.
and it's
Oklahoma
like,
hates heavy haul and super loads like Virginia does. They not happy when you got to go through there.
yeah, Oklahoma send you up 259.
Yep,
No service for like 5 hours. But
yep,
going through Arkansas, yeah, you go over this bridge and it's like 20 ton. And they like, yo, block off the bridge and don't let nobody else on there with you. And I'm thinking to myself, I guess y'all just want me to die alone, right?
right, right.
So you go through some stuff, some cool experiences, man. But anyway, that's what oversized, overweight, heavy haul is about, man. You gotta take some chances out there. But
Yeah.
I love it, man. I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world.
Yeah, and it takes a certain type of. We were talking about this too off camera. It takes a
Hmm.
certain type of resourceful person to
Yeah.
do. and like I've done it, but the Benny's, and that's why we were giving Benny his flowers too, because he's like 27 years old and he's out here getting it with the best of them, doing these big, the silos and stuff. I'm like, damn, man, I don't know if I mean, I had some balls when I was 27, but when you do that first one, I know, because he was talking about it on the channel. He was like, hey, I got this trailer. I'm just going to do it. I ain't doing these baby
Mhm.
loads no more. He just jumped into it. That's awesome. So not
Yeah,
everybody
shout
is
out to
built like
Benny.
that.
Yep.
Not everybody's built like that to do that. They see the money, and everybody thinks it's a get rich quick scam. But like I asked him, like I asked Wad, they don't give that money away, do they?
Nah, not at all, man. You got to know what you're doing, man.
Yep.
And when you get that one shot, yo, don't mess it up.
Yep, you can't mess up, man. And it ain't even that. It's the one, it's the two, it's the three. You get a lot of at bats, and you got a short window. And it's not that you can't mess up, because you can mess up anything. I mean, I've messed up. We flip lows. I've had guys. I haven't personally, thank God, knock on wood, messed up, crashed, done anything in my career
Mhm.
ever. Thank God. Actually, I say that, and I was pulling a wide load. I hate to even say this on camera because I always try to have like a perfect record, but I took a mirror off this year on an old man's truck. He got close. I was pulling a combine, and it just think the wheel there, the spindle, because it had duals, but they had the outsides off, and it
Mhm.
just tinked his mirror, and broke his mirror all the crap, and I had to buy a mirror. But that was the first time in my career ever, 10 years, being on the road and stuff, that I ever had anything come close like that to happening. But
Man, I
it
wish I
happens.
could
You
say the
can make a
same.
mistake, but you got to remedy it, and you can't make it early in your career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I tell you what, man, my one blunder, for real blunder. I was going through Mississippi years ago when I first jumped in heavy haul, and I had an overheight load. I did two of these. The first day I did the exact route. Went through the fuel station. Some of them got an open top fuel lane and the
Right.
rest is covered.
Right.
So I told myself, I'm not gonna fuel here. I turn off one road and you make a quick immediate right. So you turn left and make a quick right. I made that left, my phone ring. It's my wife. I answer that phone,
It
my
always
mind tell
happens.
me,
Distracted. Pull
stop
in
and get your
there.
fuel. And then when I went through the lane that was covered, as opposed to the open top, I said, wait, stop. You already say you're not getting fuel. Went straight through the lane, and then the front part passed. The rear of the trailer, there was a big old hitch about an inch wide, steel metal. Man, when I tell you that canopy came with me, it came with me. You know what I'm saying? But
Hey, it happens, man. It
look,
happens.
I tell my wife now, you better not call me ever again.
Ever again, right? That's how you be wanting to do it.
But look,
But hey, listen, that
it was a 1 minute phone call because right after I hit
right,
that canopy, she was gone. All right, babe, I'm gonna let you focus. Oh,
exactly.
really?
And you just sitting here with your head in your hands, like, man, man,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, 30K,
Yeah.
man, 30K. I told my insurance company, I said, y'all gave them suckers 30,000 for that. I said, I could have put some nails in
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Oh man, I could go on stories for days about stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man. So I'm gonna pull this back up just because I want to ask that question.
Mhm.
Let me share my screen real quick. I gotta do that first. So you share. So this truck, what I know what these cranes weigh because I've done them, but what can you
Mhm.
scale on equipment like this? You got 11 total axles on the ground. Okay.
Mhm.
What kind of how heavy of a load can you put on that trailer with that equipment set up like that?
Okay, so right now I don't have any deck inserts in there. It's just standard. So I'm probably somewhere around 65,000 pounds empty. Each state will determine what you can handle, right? So
Right.
if you look at the rear, let's start from the back to the front. The Stinger, you can normally get 40,000, but you probably won't get that much back there, right? On the three axles, you can go 20, 20, and 20, so you'll get about 60. So that's somewhere around 100,000 on the rear. And then
Permitted.
permitted, yeah. And
Right.
then on my Stinger, I can go 40 again. But actually, I think in Louisiana, if you got the 12-foot spread or more, you can actually do 48,000. Okay. But then they'll cap you sometimes based on your overall weight, which means they may say, okay, if you're over 150,000, you can only put 40 on there. So each state is regulated different. So let's just go with the 40 methodology. So then I will go 40 there, 40 on the truck, and then I'll take and compensate for my steer. Now, normally with that setup, I don't need the 11th axle, um, but at times I have to use it to balance the weight. So
Right.
technically, with my setup, I don't need
Like
an
in
11 axle.
Oklahoma, for instance, they would require you to have it, I think, if you're going
I
through
have to
there.
have it down,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you
Yeah.
have it, it has to be down, right?
Right.
So yeah, so that's kind of how that works. So with that being said, I can get upwards to almost 200,000 pounds, if not slightly over. Um,
And
but
now that's on the trailer, or is that total? Because people don't know when they hear that number.
oh, you
Is
talking
that
about
total
payload?
truck trailer load everything, or is that the load by itself?
Yeah, so payload, you're talking 130 or less is what I
Right.
want. And if you're talking overall gross weight, yeah, you're talking 200. I think there may be one state I can probably get up to 210, with
Right.
my axle configuration. So yeah, but payload I want to stay under 30, and I don't run 130 on the standard deck. I'll do it on a beam. So when I
Right.
swap out my deck for the beam, I'll run 130 on it. On my standard deck, I'm really not looking to be over 122. If it's a real short load, I might go 125
Right, and then some
payload.
trucks have a heavy front steer axle and some don't.
Mhm.
So I don't know if yours does or not, but I've not really ran into and you might have, I don't know, but I haven't been in a situation like what your equipment like what you have, where I've been heavy enough to make it count that I needed that big heavy front end.
Right.
Usually you pushing it further back to get it out on the rear of the trailer and the equipment.
Yeah,
Um,
so my setup, honestly, and I'll say this even the guys with the 20K front axle, more often than not, you're not getting more than 15,000. I got a
right,
14,000 pound steer. So honestly, I'm only giving up 1,000 pounds
right,
from them. The one axle that hurts me the most is my tag axle on the truck, because when I'm running a 8 axle setup, that's when I rely on that axle the most. So I really need to bump that to a 20K. But my issue with going to a 20K, what it is, I kind of like it being steerable. And once you go steerable with the 20K, man, I don't know, it's just something that just is just not right with it. Like, I don't like the steerable on the 20K, so I kind of like the 14,000 pound axle. It works better for me that way. I'm thinking about going up to 315 where I can get more payload on the actual tires, the low rating. And then if I do that, then I can probably balance out those axles and get them somewhere around 57 max, 58,000, as opposed to where I'm at right now with 20, 20, and 14. So I'm
right.
at 54, and I could probably get it to 57 or 58.
And without getting too technical, because like me and you can sit here and I hear those numbers, I already know what it is. You can spit them
Mhm,
off like the top of your head, just like anybody that's really in the game at the level that you're at.
mhm.
But for someone who that sound like Chinese, right? Where
Right,
they're
right,
watching this,
right.
they're doing flatbed, they're doing step deck. Because there was a time I thought it was Chinese. I was like, man, what the fuck are they talking about, right? So
Right.
how difficult is it from your perspective to manage which states you can haul? Like say for instance, you're like I had this happen. I was taking a load from the port out in Virginia to California, right?
Mhm,
And the way I was set up and how much I was scaling, I couldn't go through Oklahoma with the setup that I had. I had to go
mhm,
around Oklahoma, right?
mhm.
So and that's just one state that I referenced, but there's a lot of every state is different. How annoying is that to learn that to get to the level you are now, which state does what? And then you can't even memorize it. You have to go like, oh, we're doing this load. Okay, let me look up each state again real quick, so I know
Mhm,
which route I'm going to take. Because you have to submit your routes, to your
mhm.
permit company, or if you're doing it yourself to the states, you have to handle all that. So everybody that wants to get in this heavy haul, oversized game and be with the big dogs, this can't be Chinese. It can't be Spanglish. You got to know this like a second language.
Right.
So how annoying is that to you? And I mean, the learning curve you getting into it, learning all those different states and learning how to find the information, how to deal with that, how to handle that. That's a lot,
Mhm.
isn't it?
No, it is a lot, and you're right. In the beginning, it is Chinese. Is Chinese or Greek or something? Pick one, right?
Right.
But honestly, what I learned to do early on was to slow myself down and just start studying it. So when you have time off, you're in between looking at loads, take an hour out of your day sometime and just start studying what states require. Get a permit book that gives you some regulation on each state. But I'm gonna say this too, what a lot of people don't think about demographically, where you live will determine your process to learn the information that you're trying to learn. So let me show you why that matters. Okay, so I'm in Louisiana, right? I'm in the middle, almost the middle of the map. I'm more east, but I'm still somewhat the middle of the map. So I run a lot of the states that's in the south, and then I go up through the Midwest a lot, right? So what that allowed me to do is learn all the states in between. But because I'm in Louisiana, I go east sometimes as well as I go west. When you're on the East Coast, you tend to think East Coast, all the rules, regulations, and you never touch the Midwest or the West. And then when you finally do it, you're looking at a situation like you have to learn so much. Well, for me, New Orleans feed the Midwest, some of the South, and then some of the West because of the ports that is positioned by. Houston feeds the Midwest and the West. Okay, we get their fall off freight. Okay, then you have the East Coast, Florida, things like that that feed the East Coast. Baltimore, all these ports, Savannah, Blunt Island, all these places. So what that has allowed me to do, because my freight selection has sent me to all these different directions, I had to learn it quicker and I got more familiarized with it. So I could tell you off the top of my head all the neighboring states, what they require and stuff like that. I do refresh on it from time to time, but at the same time, because I run it so often, it's afforded me the opportunity to learn it quicker. So I would say for my East Coast people, yo, when you get time, learn about the states in the middle. Because I'll give you an example. You brought up Oklahoma, okay, but you cannot permit in Oklahoma a load over 90,000 pounds if you don't have a 90,000 pound plate. You see what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
A lot of people don't know. I actually learned that the hard way. I made a TikTok
Yeah.
about it. It went viral because every fucking heavy hauler in the world commented and was like, "Yeah, you're an idiot." But I said, I went in there and was like, "This is a funny story. I'm gonna tell it real quick, and then you can go." That's funny that you brought that up because I learned it the hard way, right? So one of my guys goes in there. I sent him through, and I bought the permit. You know, everything we're good. DOT officer pulls him in. Permit's no good. You got to pay fine. You got to do this, blah 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 blah. Right? I'm like, so I get on the phone with her. And I'm like, this makes no effing sense, right? And I'm
Right.
like, I have she's like, you can't be on the interstate system with a permit. It says it right on the bottom of the permit. If you didn't know, I guess we missed that part. It says that the cab car must be maxed out in the state in order for the permit to be valid. And
Right.
she said, you're not registered at 90,000 pounds. I said, no, I'm not. I'm registered at 80,000 pounds or whatever. I think it's 90. It's either 90 or 98 or something. And each state can let you go, like Maine's 120 or something, 115. Nebraska's like 110. They're all different levels. They got to be maxed out on your IRP cab car. So I didn't know this. We're arguing back and forth. She said, you can't do this, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but that's why I bought a permit. I got a permit to run through your MF and state. I paid all the
Yeah.
money. I'm good. She said, no, you ain't good. She said, your permit ain't no good. I said, then why the hell did you sell it to me? You know what I mean? Like, so we going back and forth. And basically I made a TikTok about it. And I I got trolled, but I don't care. I left it up. It's still out there. Because sometimes when you look stupid, it's a learning curve. Everybody gets a good laugh out of it. But that was a thing I did not know, and we learned it. And then we had to go update all our cab cars for the whole, across the countries and all the states that we went to. But again, we stay like we stay like Texas to the Carolinas, Michigan to Florida, and we just stay in that zone. We know that zone, and we run it. But when you get out of your zone, states have different
Everything
laws.
goes wrong.
Everything goes, it's all different.
Hey, look. So when you came on that little box that say, do you have a 90,000 pound plate? I mean, above 80,000 pound plate. You click that little.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, but we didn't have it. So I can't. I don't remember if she gave us a ticket or we had to just go get the plate up real quick. But she held the truck until it was all sorted. But I can't remember. It's been like, I don't know, 2 years ago or something. But that one went pretty viral. I think I got like 200,000 clicks on that thing.
Yeah, nah. I mean, hey, sometimes, like you say, looking bad is looking good because you get some hits, man. So, but yeah, that's what it's about, man. You got to learn your areas, go through them. I had heard horror stories about going up 259 in Oklahoma, and I was like, you know what? I took an Oklahoma load. I said, you know what? I'm going. Man, when I went through there, I was like, man, you talking about hard pulling, and you say Oklahoma don't like trucks? I believe you. Yeah, they tried to kill my truck out there, man. But I said, you know what? On the way back, I talked to this old timer, and I said, man, you know what? I'm going to get that auxiliary transmission. And he said, well, fella, he said, I drove trucks a long time. I said, yeah, but I need them 500 gear ratios. He said, yeah. He said, that'll work. He said, that'll buy you about 5 more minutes before you overheat anyway.
Man,
he said, you go overheat anyway.
But he ain't lying, man. He ain't lying.
But you learn these things, man. Trial and error has been the best teacher to a lot of us. Like you said, with your experience with Oklahoma and other states, just my experiences as well, man. But all in all, study those maps, go on their websites, study their rules and regulations, and while you're on there, start your own account. Stop using all these permit agencies. And I'm not knocking them, but what I am saying is $33, $35, $50 for a data for every state is ridiculous. Now, if they want to drop them prices to $15 a state, I understand. But the reality is, you as the driver are doing all the math, you're doing all the measuring,
everything.
You're doing all the calculating, you're spending all the money for the scales to measure axles, and then all you're doing is handing them the numbers, and they're going in there and typing it in and charging you anywhere from $30 to $50. They're robbing us. Like the truck drivers are overpaying for everything. And
Yep.
a lot of people just do it willingly, and they don't realize, for the people like myself who took the time to learn, you're kind of making it harder on us, because when you got one agency that's doing things in mass numbers, and then you got this one person who's considered a problem because he want to do it himself and save money, then what happens is you become the problem of the industry. You see what I'm saying? Because, well, why are you doing it when everybody else is using this? So just master your craft, man. That's my advice to everybody, from learning states, learning permits, learning the trucking industry. Master your craft, and don't be afraid to exert it when you do master it. You save a lot of money, and you gain a lot of experiences too.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. That's gonna be the probably the last follow up question. I do want to capitalize on that the permits though too, also, and like what that looks like. But yeah, man. So and you talked about the permit companies. A lot of people don't know what that is. Again, that's Chinese, but for us, because we've done it both ways, like you said, try to save that money, and it is a lot of money. It does add up. I mean, last year when we were doing a ton of oversized stuff, the years prior, I've always used either a Permit Wizard or WSC permits, and we had so much volume because we do it oversized on the hot shots all the way through the flatbed step decks to the RGNs, that it was just too cumbersome for my wife or just my operations team to handle. But we paid them so much money, they sent us a nice little gift at the end of the year between the two of them. And they were happy with it, and we were happy with it. But again, we tried the other way, and we did it where we serviced it to the states, and I had an in-house operations person that did that weekly. And it does save a lot of money, where you can almost hire that person full time, and then when they're not doing that, you can have them doing other things. But there's a learning curve there also. So when I'm teaching oversized to people in the beginning, I'm like, hey, go get you a permit service, let them handle it, because you don't have no clue what the hell you're talking about or doing. And you need to figure it out, whether it be hot shot or if you just went got a 40-ton, low boy or a flatbed step deck. But so from your experience and what you're saying you do now is you pretty well handle it yourself, right?
Yeah, so I learned it in stages, just like what you're speaking of. I learned heavy haul and portioned it out to permit agencies. What I learned real quickly was I wanted to get away from that, because what happened was I ended up doing it in Louisiana specifically for like a long period, where I would go drive out to Baton Rouge and pick up. They used to sell you like a little paper that you handwrite, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like $10 a page. And then when I learned, I'm like, whoa, so you mean to tell me all the stuff that they've been asking me on the phone, basically I'm doing all the work and just filling, and they're filling out a paper and
Right.
submitting it. So then when I learned that, I was like, so I could do this. So then what happened was, most of the states you run through, permit agencies have already started you an account. So you end up having an account, you're just not the one that's controlling it. So I
Right.
started reversing all of that and controlling my own accounts. The two states that took me the longest to gain access, well, three states that took me the longest was Florida, because I just hadn't did a Florida permit. And then Tennessee was one of the toughest. And then Ohio was tough, because
Yeah.
at the time the insurance company that I had a 500-mile radius. Now what that meant was I can go outside of that radius, but I had to stay in it within, I think I was like 85 or 90% of the time
Right.
I
The
had to
time.
be in my radius. Yeah. So they wouldn't do anything that helped me go out of my radius. And
Right.
in Ohio, they make you fill out a form in
Right.
order to operate in Ohio. So I couldn't get that state. Now I'm with a major company, one of the biggest in the industry, A++ rated, and they're tops. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with them, and they'll get me in wherever I want to go. Like my next move, I'm looking to go across the border and do a little Canadian freight as well. And
Yeah.
that's next on my list. We need a little more space, man, with the trucks we're running, and that's one of the ways we're gonna gain it.
Yeah, holler
So
at me when you're ready to do that, man. I got to connect for that, and we've done some stuff already going over there, and it ain't that bad. Everybody thinks it is, but it ain't.
yeah, well,
Um,
I'm looking into it. So we definitely can talk off camera
yeah,
and get caught
but
up
yeah,
on
for
that.
sure. The Ohio is a pain. Ohio is a pain in my ass
Yeah,
every day. It seems like, man. And I'm actually
yeah.
born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, until I was about 13, and then we moved, or I was about 11 actually when we moved to Arkansas, and I pretty well finished growing up over there. So I always say I'm from Arkansas, but I'm was born in Cleveland, Ohio, right outside
Okay.
the city, actually, in a little town outside of Lorraine called Elyria. You probably been through there on 90, but
Hmm.
or going that way, but California is a pain in the ass too. And then Pennsylvania, man, they just, that's a good example of, and you were talking about, the permit companies doing it for you. Some people don't even know that, like, when you get into the super low status, some of the states, for instance, Pennsylvania, they won't let a permit company do it on your behalf. You have to
Yeah.
do it. You like
Hmm.
they just won't accept it. Like, no, we'll let them do other shit, but they can't
Hmm.
do it once it reaches super low status.
Accountability. Yeah,
Right.
that's
And
what
then
they
you got to
want.
be You got to be bonded and the other form, a whole bunch of other paperwork. But then also people think I'm gonna go get a trailer, right? Let's just say I'm a new guy. You give it. The last question is, what would you tell for some new people getting in the industry? And everybody's like, oh man, Joe's the king of the heavy haul shit. I'm gonna do what he's doing, or C1 or Watt or a Benny or any of these guys, right?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna go get a truck. I'm gonna go get a trailer. I'm gonna start doing oversize, right? I'm gonna do heavy haul. They don't even know. And what's your recommendation to tell them what to do, or what advice would you give to them? But they don't even know. You go to get set up in these states like you did back in the day. It ain't like I'm gonna buy this or get this load on the load board, book it or whatever, and then go do the load. Sometimes you might be 2 weeks to a month before you can even get set up to haul that load through that state.
Right.
Once you're set up, you can get the permits, right? And even like Tennessee, they just hired a bunch of people. But man, I've sat at the border of Tennessee for 4 friggin' days because they just like, and there's no phone you can call. They just send an email. That's all they got. Hey, there's nobody to call. There's nobody to answer the phone. You submitted your permit, and it's hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would tell
advice
people
you would give to I guess they don't have to be younger, but anybody getting in the game that is going to go get some equipment, flatbed, step deck, RGN, heavy haul, whatever. What advice would you give them right now if you're telling them, this is what you should be doing and how to approach it, decision making wise and stuff like that?
This is what I say to that. I would tell people that heavy haul is the pinnacle of trucking. It's the only industry or only niche in the industry that you can take one load and make over $1 million off of, right?
Right.
So they shouldn't look to expedite that process. I think that there's a set of steps that you have to climb before you get there. So lose that expectation that you're gonna just jump in and do that. And I know there have been people that has jumped in and did it, but they've done it with a lot of help. Trust me. So with that being said, understand that I look at the trucking industry just like a game of poker, right? I don't play poker because I'm looking to get rich or I love the money. I play poker because I love the game and money is the prize. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Master the process and the money will come with it. Anytime you put anything else in front of that, man, I'm telling you, you're cheating yourself. If you chase the money in any industry, you're gonna get the money, but how long will you hold on to it? You see what I'm saying? I've always focused on the process. So if you do that, I don't care where you start. If you start with chemicals, dump trucks, dry vans, reefers, I mean, whatever you start with, master the process and watch and see in the long run the fruits of your labor, what will happen. And when I say master, don't just get in and say, okay, they say I have to do this and that's enough. No, understand compliance. Don't just get in and say, they say I need to keep records. So you just scribble some stuff on a piece of paper. When I did my first safety audit, you know what I did? I was 30 minutes late to the audit. I did a load and it pushed me 30 minutes out. The guy was blowing me up who's doing my audit. And I told the guy, I said, man, chill out. I got it all on the computer. We're going to go through it like this. He said, oh, really? He said, well, you better go through it like this since you're telling me to chill out. When I showed up, he had scheduled 2 hours for me to do my interview. When I left, we still had an hour to spare, and I got there 30 minutes late. But everything that he told me he wanted to see, I typed it in, and it popped up. Show me your last MCS 190 update. Show me this. Show me your accident report. Show me the documents where you fill this out. Show me this. Let me see your logs. Most of that time was spent him flipping through my old school paper logs. We laughed and joked so much that I knew for sure. I gave him, they only wanted, I want to say 3 months of logs. I gave him about 6 months to a year of logs because I had 1 or 2 missing. And I said, well, if he find these 1 or 2 logs in his stack, because I didn't have time to do it because I got there late. But if he find these 1 or 2 logs in his stack, I guess I'm busted. So I'm just saying, focus on the process, man, master the process, and you'll be surprised with the results you'll end up with. But if you chase the money, hey, I'm not here to tell you don't do it that way. Only thing I'm gonna tell you is don't expect longevity when you do it that way.
Man, that's that again, you hit the nail on the head every time I ask you a question, man. That's how you know this guy ain't playing around. He's been in the game. He knows his shit because, even Watt said the same thing. Nobody wants to respect the process anymore. Everybody wants to everybody wants to be, like you said, at the pinnacle right now, and it's not possible. It's just not. You're not going to not know shit about trucking and go buy the setup that this man has that we just showed and just jump into this shit. You're not. And if you do, it ain't gonna be long lived. It's just not. It's not possible. I don't think it is. Do you think that if you take yourself back to day one and just like here it is, Have
Mhm.
fun. Go start a business. Do this low 60,000. You think you could just do it day one? Just got your CDL fresh out of CDL school?
Nah, I'm
I
not
don't
even
think I
ready.
could have.
Yeah,
I don't
growing up
think
in trucking, I had been around it all my life, but I wasn't ready. Like people don't even realize I got a guy up in front calling out calls, sometimes 2 and 3 and 4 lights ahead, power lines, etc. And he's telling me, "Yo, Joe, zigzag this light. Make sure you're in the left lane. Turn that curve. Zigzag around these cars. Go all the way around between cars 2 and 3." You see what I'm saying? We got police out there moving around. You have bucket trucks flying around you on the left, flying around you on the right. Nah, man, it take a certain set of patience, a certain set of calm. I got a rear pilot car calling out to me. My son's following behind us in one of my trucks because he has boards and diesel and
right.
stuff like that.
Support. Right.
Yeah, so I got
And then
50
it took you
people out
2
here.
months to facilitate getting ready to move this piece. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That it's like, come on, man, you just ain't gonna get to this level without putting your
But
time in and earning your stripes.
one more thing too, and then it's the improvise. Even though I had a pilot car run a route survey for me, by the time we made it to one of the intersections, they had cones in the road and they had parked the emergency vehicle with the thing telling people to veer
Right.
left. Okay, we had to improvise. So we had to go
Right.
through a parking lot, jump over a curve. But because I had blocks already, knowing that this could happen, we were able to go through it flawlessly. So,
Right.
you can plan for everything and still things go wrong. And that's when experience kicks in, man, because when you panic, it's over already. It's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? Once you panic, it's too late.
Right.
Yeah. So take your
100%.
time. Yeah.
100%, man.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, you guys heard it right here, man. This guy, I'm glad we were able to do this again. I appreciate you so much for coming on, man. Huge inspiration. I'm gonna go follow all your shit now and look at all of it because,
Yeah.
man, this guy, he's got the gems, man. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on here to talk trucking with us. Hopefully, we can do this again in the near future. And man, tell them where they can find you at, and I'll throw that on the front so that way they can come, do a deep dive on what the hell you got going on because you got something to say and they need to listen.
Yeah. So check me out on IG right now. I go by Heavy Hard Giant and or either Joe Gipp. Joe Gipp is JoeGipp, all one word. And then the Heavy Hard Giant, or not but Heavy Hard Giant on IG. I'm not big on posting on most of the other social media networks, but what I will say is I do have something big coming up within the next year. So y'all might want to lock in because I guarantee the whole industry will want to be a part of it, no matter what part of the industry you're in, from brokers to truck drivers, hot shot, you name it. Everybody is going to want to be a part of it.
100%, man. 100%. Well, again, I thank you for coming on. So, what's next, man? You're going bigger and better. You're going to get the big, big, big stuff. I mean, you're already doing big stuff, but you're going bigger and better from here, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
goal always, right?
Yes, sir. Looking to expand my company, as well as I want to go with a perimeter probably next. That perimeter will probably be a 13 axle setup. And I want to get into that well over 200,000 pound industry. And it costs money, man. Those trailers are 800,000 easily,
Yep.
so huge investment, but it's not one I haven't made before. Huge investment wise. My last trailer was $250,000. So, and that wasn't including the truck. So I had a $500,000 setup with a $500,000 line of credit. So it was
Yep.
three more,
Right.
Yeah.
And just level up from there, man. Well, you're making all the right choices. You're making all the right decisions. I'm excited to see what you got going on. I'm excited just to have, the opportunity to do this and sit down and I'm gonna keep following you, man, and see where you're going.
Yeah. So,
But again, I appreciate you, man. You guys know what it is. No Bullshit Podcast. This has been a really inspirational, insightful episode, man. And we got more coming. Add whatever you want. What you got?
one more thing before you go, man. You mentioned a lot of my coworkers, man. Different companies, but we all out here fighting the same struggle. Shout out to Wad, Hasha Benny, and C1. Shout out to my guy Elliot taking flight. A lot of these guys out here fighting that struggle every day. A lot of you other guys out there. Shout out to my lovely wife and my children. And of course, I'm happy to be on your channel. Support, show love, pass through, and drop gems. Thank you for having me. Yo, check this guy out, man. He the man, bro. Appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. Hopefully, we have all those other guys too, man. Go tell everybody you know. Ask
Yeah.
them how their mom and them's doing, and get them on the channel, man, so we can get the content to the people that need it. Because I think that they see this and think it's a get rich quick scam, and the generals are here to tell them you can get here, but not overnight. And I just
Yeah.
love everything that you said Oh, the one last thing I wanted to say, I'm in with this quote because I'm going to take this quote. I'm going to just put it in quotes. Joe Give everywhere on Instagram going out now. I pay
Yeah.
cash for my personal life and I finance my business. What does that mean to you? Closing
Hey,
statement.
listen. Investments cost money when you borrow money, so you want to be making money with it. And if you're not making money off it, why you paying taxes on it? I don't pay interest on things that don't make me money. You know what I'm saying? So that's the heart and soul behind that quote, man. Stop paying taxes or interest or whatever you want to call it on things that's not making you money. Save that for money making investments.
100%. Well, man, we're going to end on that. Pay cash for your personal life and finance your business, man. All right. We'll catch you guys again. Thank you for tuning in and tune into the next one.
Salute.